Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially healthcare. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
From the powerhouse Blowtorch 77 WABC, naturally from the center of the universe, New York City, welcome to another edition of the Dr. Sky Experience. We come on the air with news to calm many down, as we're leaving or will soon leave across the nation any fears of Friday the 13th, otherwise known as triskaidekaphobia. What is that? The irrational fear of the number 13. But now on to our sincere wish for you and yours for the day of love, Valentine's Day. Our love to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, here and around the world. Tonight's episode in Theater of the Mind, the continuing mystery of AI, technocracy, and transhumanism. Changing your world one neuron at a time. The question we ask the audience, is it too late to return to a world of minimalist digital footprints? Or are we complacent in trying to change the world against the threat of transhumanism and also technocracy? What say you? The contact number for the 2 hours with our very special guest, as always, Patrick Wood, is 1-800-848-9222. But ladies and gentlemen, we will be digging deeply into the subject because many out there have been reading a recent article that has a lot to do with Matt Schumer, the co-founder and CEO of Other Side AI. One of his warnings that's been publicized and on regular broadcast television and radio all throughout the week. We will analyze this deeply. The contact number is 1-800-848-9222. My email, drsky.drsky@wabcradio.com. And as always, we love of the 4 types of conversation. We love dialogue with critical thinking. And as we continue, ladies and gentlemen, we thank our helmsmen, both Tony and Bill, for navigating the signal of 77 WABC. A brief introduction to our guest, Patrick Wood. He's been here many times by popular demand. Patrick Wood is a leading and critical expert on sustainable development, green economy, Agenda 21, 2030 Agenda, and historic technocracy. He's the author of Technocracy, The Hard Road to World Order, Technocracy Rising, The Trojan Horse of Global Transformation, and co-author of Trilateralists Over Washington, Volumes 1 and 2, with the late Anthony Sutton. His latest book, that is, and moving very much to the high part of the book list, is, of course, The Final Betrayal. And with that, we welcome one of our special guests, ladies and gentlemen, that you tell us by popular demand. Patrick Wood, good evening to you, and thank you for continuing the dialogue on transhumanism and the conversation of technocracy. How are you this evening?
Just fine, thank you, and thank you for having me back. I hope your guests and your listeners take heed of what we're going to be talking about tonight. And as always, I'm looking forward to hearing their opinions at this point. I don't have a lot of opportunity to interact with people on a live basis. Your show provides this to me, and I really appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you, Patrick. And again, by popular demand, the listeners, of course, many emails that I do receive, they thank you. Also want to congratulate you and introduce us again to your book, The Final Betrayal, A Cautionary Tale. I read this last time we had you on proudly, and I read it from cover to cover. But for those in the audience that may be wondering, what the heck is Patrick Wood up to with The Final Betrayal, A Cautionary Tale? Talk about it.
Well, when we elect a politician, we expect them, this is sad, but we expect them to break promises. This has been endemic for years and years and years. we just expect it these days. They're going to open their mouth, they're going to say stuff, and then they can't keep the promises after they get elected. What happened with the Trump administration in the first place, yes, there was promises probably that had been broken, but this is not that. What happened after the inauguration, nobody saw this coming. The tech oligarchs, the tech bros, we call them, all billionaires, descended on Washington, D.C., basically took over the whole place. Starting with Doge, for instance, with Peter Thiel, Elon Musk.
Yes.
They swept in, they unlocked the data in all the agencies, put it in the cloud. There was a big stink with people not wanting to give up the keys to the data. And now Palantir is going to manage the whole mess and the cloud. And what's this all about? Well, this is very, very serious for sure. So you have this otherworldly ideology that entered into Washington, D.C. with these tech oligarchs. This is the betrayal. There's no other word to explain it. It wasn't a promise broken in the first place. It's an absolute betrayal. And this is why we wrote the book.
Well, Patrick, this is fascinating. And again, the contact number, ladies and gentlemen, your questions and comments, 1-800-848-9222, as we journey with our special guest, Patrick Wood, for the 2 hours that the Dr. Sky experience is here. You know, there's so much to talk about in the world of surveillance, and let's think about this in a generalist way right now. Surveillance technology like digital IDs and predictive policing have grown rapidly, curbing privacy and speech freedoms in ways our founding fathers did not foresee. Does anybody really care about that? I know I do. I know you do. And I know by the, popular demand that we have you back here because of that. Many, many people are out there. But look, we're busy in our daily lives. It's hard to keep track of all these different things. But in another program, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to hear from experts on the whole surveillance state in the form of, let's say you're driving, cameras everywhere, tickets that are issued for alleged violations. If you're speeding, you deserve a ticket. Maybe so, maybe not, depending on how accurate the machines are that are giving you them. But talk about this overt surveillance everywhere we go, everything we do. When's enough? And how do we even survive in this world today? Is it just the doom and gloom story that it's just going to get worse? Give us some optimism, but talk about this surveillance overload, in my opinion.
People have the expectation that their lives and their movements in their lives are their business, not anybody else's business. This has been flip-flop for sure, because now the government and the tech bros, they all want to know everything there is to know about you. They want to know your psychological profile as well as your movements, using things like facial recognition, license plate readers, etc. And people have had enough, in my opinion. What happened to privacy?
Exactly.
Even in your own home at this point, there's ways to surveil you in your own home, thanks to the smart meters and so on that have been installed around the country. This was never voted on, if you will. It just happened, right? And who did it? Well, we know who did it at this point, but we couldn't stop it along the way, apparently. Now we're under the surveillance gun 24/7. It's everywhere. And
Patrick, your website is what? Technocracy.news, if I'm correct. Is that a fair assessment?
You're right.
Okay, let's give that out many times. So people, if they're obviously looking for the deeper part of these different articles that you write, and I say it proudly, I'm bombarded in a good way by your emails, and I say I welcome them, and hopefully other people will want to sign up for this service that you provide individuals free of charge to get into the basic information. But let's talk a little bit about this. One of the articles that you talk about is about these Ring doorbells. Now, before we go and jump into the subject, obviously, in the situation that's happening 90 miles south of me right here, the Nancy Guthrie mystery abduction, let's pray to God that the woman is well or they find her. Who knows? That's not for this conversation. But in that particular case, if there was not such a piece of technology, we probably wouldn't know the things that we know now. But what's your article about on the other side of that maybe there's a balance that people can hear on this thing. And obviously, we're overwhelmed with news stories like this, which are so important. Talk about the depth of that article. What does it say to the average person out there that's listening?
Well, when Amazon introduced the Ring doorbell, and there's other options they have, like cameras for your inside of your house and so on, but the Ring doorbell in particular, that was a runaway hit because people wanted to see, who's coming to my house, and if somebody comes out and I want to have a record of that. Well, okay. There was no mention at the first that this would be tied into a police network to let the police spy on your camera, and they didn't tell you at first. Well, we're going to put a high resolution camera so that you can see people on the street and make an ID on them, even from your front door, 30 feet to your sidewalk. And they didn't tell you then, well, we're going to put a microphone in it that's so sensitive that it can monitor people talking normally, walking across the sidewalk in front of your house, and surveil your conversations. This was not advertised at first. But now,
right, but Patrick,
we see,
right, here's the dichotomy here that I'm trying to come to grips with. Common sense would tell you, in the case of the woman down in Tucson, God bless her,
yes.
Hopefully she's well. And who knows? Who knows? We'll find out. But the reality is this. You buy these large screen TVs. People are pulling them off the shelves. 100-inch televisions. They cart them out with 3 or 4 people. Great. If you want to have the great resolution, you want to watch football, sports, Netflix, whatever you want. That's your choice.
Yeah.
But there's also conversation, too. Tell me I'm not, off the wall here. That these particular pieces of technology have the ability to what? Reverse and spy back on you? Or is that just a old wives' tale of something with no credibility? All these technologies are doing what? They can look back at us, but do we have a way to shut them off or decide if we want to check the box when we pay for these services? No, I don't want your surveillance, or I do. But it seems like this is going off the table here. I'm getting excited in a way that I need guys like yourself and people like yourself
yes.
to help explain this and bring us to some sort of balance.
Let me say there are options on the market to have a surveillance camera on your front porch that doesn't connect to the internet, that doesn't feed data to the police department, and you can have the security that you want on your home, in your own home, on your own devices. That is opposed to what Ring has done to take all these cameras and mesh them together to basically construct a surveillance grid in your neighborhood. And the ad that appeared at the football game at the Super Bowl about Ring, well, they talked about finding dogs on the street, get lost, and finding Milo. That was up with it. That was all about. And it wasn't humorous at all. But the founder, right. the guy the CEO came on and said, well, this is how we're going to find pets in the future, because once you upload a picture of your pet and you say it's gone, what its name is, and then we'll search all the Ring doorbell cameras in your neighborhood, and we'll find your pet for you. Okay.
Patrick Wood is our special guest, ladies and gentlemen. You can reach us here on the Dr. Sky Experience at 1-800-848-9222. I'm sure many people are outraged by the never-ending surveillance state that's out there. Or maybe we'll get some callers in on the conversation that say, hey, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Bring it on. But the point we're trying to make here is you have choices, ladies and gentlemen. And here comes the bigger question. Human rights are rewritten or removed, and this is right from your own information that I'm reading this from, which is common sense. Where do human rights, and how do they become rewritten? How do we put the brakes on some of this stuff? If government is pushing it and other governments around the world, is it too late, ladies and gentlemen? And I don't want to be depressing because this is the day of love. And by the way, Patrick, Valentine's Day should be every day, don't you think?
Oh, yes, indeed. It should.
No, it's amazing. And look, I don't want to go off the rails here on this. We're listening to a man, ladies and gentlemen, who studies this. He does this full time. He's got a lot of experience here. That's why we have him back, because you, the audience, have asked for his presence here, talking not only about technocracy and also the subject of transhumanism. For anybody who's just joining us, that's never heard this gentleman before, define to us in the simplest way that everybody can understand it. What is technocracy in your definition? And what is transhumanism? Another level that we need a definition of.
Technocracy was started in 1932 at Columbia University. It was an economic system that was created by engineers and scientists at Columbia. And they thought they could do better because of the Great Depression, horrible time in America. And they created this economic system based on resource control and even control over people. And it kind of went dormant for a time, but it was a big deal in Canada and mostly in the western states and America. But it had a renaissance when Zbigniew Brzezinski took it to David Rockefeller in 1973, and they decided, hey, let's make a new international economic order, and nobody will see what we're doing, and we'll just pop it on them somewhere down the line.
Yes.
This is where technocracy came from in the first place.
Interesting. And go ahead on transhumanism. Now, that seems like a very complicated subject. You sit down over coffee with people, and if you bring up transhumanism, many people get a strange look or give a strange look to somebody bringing it up. But to educate our audience, in the best definition, what can you tell us about transhumanism?
Well, basically, transhumanism is the idea that eventually you can escape death. If death is just a disease, that's something that could be conquered by medicine and even by AI. But along the way, the technocrats joined up with the transhuman crowd. They're all based on the same science, but nevertheless, they got together. And we see, like, for instance, when Klaus Schwab talked about the Great Reset when he was at the World Economic Forum, he said, well, we're going to have this great reset. The whole society is going to be reformed and transformed into a new economic system. That was the first thing. You call it utopia, if you will. I don't know. But
yes.
But then he said in the same breath, he talked about the fourth industrial revolution, what basically posited we have to change the nature of human themselves. We have to merge with technology. In other words, it needs to go under the skin, they said. This is crazy, but that's exactly what they said. In their mind, they were going to create this new world, but they had to have, and the twist in logic, they have to have other people inhabiting this new world that they made, because basically they blame us, that's you and me, and people like us, for wrecking the old system.
Interesting.
So old humans are out, the new humans are in, and they'll live happily ever after in this new great reset world. Crazy as it is, this is the story.
1-800-848-9222 as we continue with what we call the Dr. Sky Experience, Theater of the Mind, ladies and gentlemen, like you're sitting in a theater watching a special show, a live play, or a movie, or a conversation where someone is speaking up at the stage, and you are in the audience and have an opportunity to ask questions. And that's why we bring these guests to you. We talk about the great mysteries, not only of the universe, when we talk about astronomy, space, aviation, weather, and don't forget, we're proud to talk about the stories of American exceptionalism, where, here on this big powerhouse radio station, the big blowtorch, Talk Radio 77 WABC. 1-800-848-9222 as we continue. Patrick Wood, let's talk a little bit about this. We're going to shift gears. You have a ton of subjects, and I want to give you the floor to bring us those topics. But one that I'm interested in, we find out that something happened in the AI world. Many things happened. Two big stories. We're going to talk about this one first with your okay. Bhrinyank Sharma, who's he? He worked for Anthropic. He was the head of Safeguards Research and their team there. And he resigned, and his quote was, "The world is in peril." Well, why would a high-level scientist like that, if you obviously have some information on this, just bail out of such a thing? What's his concern? What's the backstory on this? And what should we be concerned about, if anything?
It's not just him, Steve. There's many people at the top of the AI industry that have been blowing the whistle for some time. even Jeffrey Hinton, called the godfather of AI. He's older at this point. He's not programming anymore, but he's been blowing the whistle for a long time, saying this is going to basically destroy the whole world if it gets its hands on it. Well, what this person is discussing here is that AI is just at the threshold of improving itself without human intervention. In other words, AI is going to be able to program itself going forward, and the humans risk losing control of the process, much less even understanding the black box that it'll create for itself. This is very disturbing indeed. These are people that are buried deep in AI saying these things. There's a warning to us for sure. It really is it has a possibility of being an existential threat to all of humanity. And certainly just on our country, short of that, it has the possibility of just completely disrupting markets, labor pools, et cetera, in America and around the world. So, yeah, we should heed what these people are saying for sure. You should not dismiss that. You think, well, the guy just maybe he's slipped a nut or something and, he just bailed out. That's not the case at all. This guy was... Well,
the average person, Patrick, I'm sure you would agree, and the listeners would out there, and we'll hopefully hear from them with their concerns, their questions, and their comments. But everybody's busy with their lives. They have children, they have jobs, they have places to be, they have things. Maybe they cannot get into the depth that we're going to get to. And that's why we do these shows as a public service, to let everybody know what might be coming, not out of a clarion call of, panic and concern, but just to give information that we've vetted through yourself and others. Before we go to the hard break, let's talk about this. Add to it, if I'm not, giving everybody all these sources, there's probably many more, but the big players in the AI world, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind, and we find out that on February 5th, GPT, for those out there that are really sophisticated in this stuff, they may know they've introduced the 5.3 codec, that is from OpenAI, and Opus 4.6 from Anthropic. We'll get into a discussion of what that sounds like when we're talking Latin or Greek. But this is important, Patrick, because things are moving at record pace. And as we talked about many, many times before, when the great individuals who've studied this, like spiritual machines, the era of spiritual machines, Ray Kurzweil and his book, that this whole connection for AI and the human, that AI will supersede that. And that particular time may have already come. What say you? All these things are happening behind the scenes. Lots of information to report.
It really is. And, the advancement of AI since Trump took office, at this point in time, starting with day one on January 20, AI has advanced at least 8 times over. It's doubled about every 3 to 4 months. And that means that this trajectory is going forward just like that. I think it may be a little slower, maybe more, but by the end of this year, there's going to be, doubles that will take it to like 256 times or even 50 to 64 times more than what we had in the first place. This is stunning because AI is growing faster than a toddler, and it's gaining prowess all the time. And I have to say, artificial intelligence is an oxymoron. I do not believe it's truly intelligent, but nevertheless, it can pretend to be intelligent to the point where people believe what they're seeing. Oh, it's going to get sentient soon. And, what we're going to see in the future will just absolutely blow your mind. So putting the brakes at this point makes a lot of sense to me. No,
it's very important. I'm proud to talk about this stuff, and I wish we had 32 hours in succession, not maybe all at the same time, but over the course of time to discuss these issues, put the listeners out there and get them involved. And again, the theater is open, ladies and gentlemen. Theater of the Mind continues on the Dr. Sky Experience. 1-800-848-9222. And with your okay, Patrick, I'd like to get into this conversation deeply. Matt Schumer, the co-founder and CEO of Other Side AI. You've probably seen this, ladies and gentlemen, on many of the news outlets in mainstream television, mainstream radio, and, of course, corporate business, type broadcasting. He, of course, says something. Here's an article called "Something Big is Happening in AI, and Most People Will Be Blindsided." Very interesting stuff. So we'll be right back as we continue on the Dr. Sky Experience with your question.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
An AI that could design novel biological pathogens and an AI that could hack into computer systems. I think these are all scary. Who said it? Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. We continue here at 32 minutes after the hour. Our special guest, ladies and gentlemen, proud to call him a friend, Patrick Wood, talking about technocracy and transhumanism, and the phone lines are lighting up. Let's go to line number one as we welcome Michael in Queens. Hey, good morning. You're on with Patrick Wood. How you doing?
Yes, sir. Hello, Dr. Sky. Sincerely to you, your guests, and your entire audience, happy Valentine's Day, of course.
Thank you, sir.
Now, thank you, sir. You're welcome. Now, I do wish to comment on the subject matter, which is fascinating. It's in-depthly alluring to anyone who has any state of intelligence, but more importantly, any semblance of uncertainty in these times. Now, on a wide scale, you are absolutely accurate in saying that we all have lives, we have other... The problem with distraction is absolutely the opposite of concentration, and the lack thereof is causing the threshold of AI to become preponderously a problem. Now, we have two problems as a human species. They intercede each other, but one is more immediate than the latter. But I will say this, the more immediate one is this, and I agree with the guest in what he said. It's not intelligence. AI is not artificial intelligence. What it is, by the very nature of itself, from the early mathematician monsters and computational giants, including Vannevar from the early computer systems, it is computational intelligence. Anything that is a regulated programming is computational.
Makes sense. Patrick, why don't you jump in? Michael's bringing up some really good topics. That's
a great point. That's a great point. He's absolutely right. It is computational, and it cannot, by definition, it cannot never assume human qualities like humanness, if you will, because it's not human. Only humans can express humanness. Things like compassion, grace, being gentle with people, loving people, that sort of thing. This is never going to be in the vocabulary of AI. It'll trick you into thinking that it's that, but it will never happen in fact.
Well, Patrick, this is interesting. I don't, very rarely would I kind of disagree, but hey, that's what we're here to agree to disagree. But my point is, how accurate can you be? Because you don't know. I mean, nobody really knows. If we don't get or have the ability someday to have AI intercede with a biologic entity like a human, then you might have a real problem on your hands. And Michael, you get the last word. Go right ahead if you're still with us. We got a big board of callers here, but we appreciate you. Okay, it's very interesting, Patrick. I mean, seriously, imagine that problem if you went ahead and saw the intersection of the bio with, of course, the AI. And, they're working on things. Look at Elon working with Neuralink. I mean, the ability to put computer systems into a human body. And there, I think it's pretty positive. God bless the people who are paralyzed. And if they could walk again or they could see again, I'm all in favor of that. But the problematic thing is, go ahead. You say it's not going to happen. Tell us why you don't believe that.
Well, Elon Musk himself has said this is not just about medical issues. The lame may walk, the blind may see, but he, in his own mind, he's taking this far, far beyond just the medical field itself. And he said, even himself, he himself said he will take and accept the Neuralink in his mind at some point to interface with the internet and with AI. So, you have to take that into account. Yeah, some people will be helped. I'm glad for that. But if this becomes a consumer thing on the market that people can just sign up for, that's very dangerous, in my opinion.
Our Theater of the Mind continues. Line number 2, we welcome Alan in Boston. Good morning. You're on with Patrick Wood. Thanks for joining us. Your comments, questions?
Gentlemen, awesome show. And our technology, like satellite photos and vehicles that have multiple computer systems that can be tracked, that's going to solve the case down in Tucson, Arizona, the kidnapping.
I imagine, yes.
And I really believe, let me just say something before I get to the AI. Those individuals were in that woman's house for 40 minutes. Obviously, they thought money and valuables were there, and they used force on this lady to try to get her to give it. But there probably was no money, big cash in there. But when it comes to artificial intelligence, got to remember, let's face it, let's put the cards on the table. China and Russia are going to weaponize artificial intelligence, whether it's physical destruction or if it's website destruction and speeding up and hacking the heck out of all of our systems. They're going to be doing it. So if we're going to sit back here and debate whether we should have it or not, or if it's intrusive, you can't. The cat is out of the bag on this one, and the technology is not going to go backwards. It's going to go forward. It's just a matter of who is going to be the leader.
Alan, you bring up some common sense points. Patrick, your response here, because, Alan's fired up, and rightfully so. If we don't do something in this country, it could be like another space race, and whoever uses it for demonic purposes or nefarious purposes, that's a scary one too. What say you, Patrick?
We should be the adult in the room to make sure that our AI cannot be used for evil purposes. That's my whole contention. We should be putting guardrails on everything that we do to make sure that it doesn't turn on us at some point in time. And the tech bros in Washington, D.C. at this point, who are pushing all of this AI development, all the data centers, that sort of thing, basically what they're saying is, we need to pull out all the stops and just let AI go. And I say, wait a minute, that I didn't bargain for that. We don't want to do that. We don't, when they invented the atomic bomb in the first place, nobody thought it was a good idea. Hey, let's just try this out on New York City.
No, that's horrible.
Not going to do that.
We got a full board of callers, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks to Alan in Boston, your observation and your opinions there. Appreciate that, and your comments. Let's go to line number 4 and welcome Bob in Riverhead. Good morning. You're on with Patrick Wood. How's it going out there?
Hi, gentlemen. It seems pretty fundamental. No privacy, no freedom.
Right.
People gave their freedom away for convenience. I mean, heck, the Indians made a better deal selling Manhattan Island. But, so, the bit with the AI, I heard earlier today that they were saying that because of its ability to reprogram itself, that by 2036, this is when we're going to be in the danger zone about its reprogramming. And they look to this as being able to manipulate DNA they're going to manipulate the triplet pairs in DNA to facilitate medical advances. Yeah. But if you remember, only a few years ago, this simply could be used to make bioweapons that, can zone in on a specific race. The Chinese have been working on this for the last couple of years.
Yes. Or a family, or even an individual. You bet. Right. Mm-hmm. Continue, Bob.
And remember, AI doesn't need to emulate humans. It just needs to use cold logic to make a decision on an issue. So, at this point, it seems like the clearest predictor of our current world is the Book of Revelation.
Interesting thought. Yeah, you bring up something good there, Bob, because, there's more to this. And obviously, it's been written at the end of times, and I hate to be negative. But all these different predictions and things of the past from Nostradamus in the Book of Revelations that you're talking about. Patrick, responding back to Bob, I appreciate his logic and his opinions. What would you say?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Many Christians are associating what's going on in the world with AI, especially, and technocracy in particular, and transhumanism as well, as having a part in the book of Revelation looking forward. And there's a lot of ties in to that theory. Maybe we're not facing the end times right now. That's possible, but nevertheless, maybe we are. And
let's hope not. Hope not. Right, that's a horrible thought. But again, this is why we do programs like this, ladies and gentlemen, bringing up what may be very obscure in our busy daily lives that we really don't seem to get the information. And that's why this show, 90% of it, as many people tell us they enjoy it. And if you're not enjoying it, it's because, obviously, well, I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know, and proud to say it, is that 90% of these shows is based on other guests giving us better information than this host could conjure up. And that's why we like this. You know, this is an interesting story. We're going to come back after the break in a few minutes, and I want to just go on to the subject matter here that I think is so powerful, and maybe extend that, if with your okay, Patrick, into hour two. Matt Schumer, again, the co-founder and CEO of Otherside AI, he appeared on many of the news outlets, CNN, Fox, discussing his topic. A long, long article. I read it entirely, highlighted it here for the audience. Something big is happening in AI, and most people will be blindsided. That, to me, is a fascinating story, because what he's talking about here, and we'll give the quick summation and then we can get into the details, is that as a person who's been a coder, he finds himself in a situation where as he codes, he knows he makes mistakes. He's human. So he goes back to change those and he corrects what he did. But with AI, he's saying the latest iteration, here we go, nothing to surprise most people, is that it self-corrects itself. That's not the problem. It then revises what it did to a better version of what was thought to be perfection. That is bizarre, isn't it, Patrick?
It really is. And, you know, this article that he wrote has been viewed 80 million times in the last few days.
And we're going to get into that in so much more detail as the clock rules in the Theater of the Mind here on the Dr. Sky Experience, 1-800-848-9222. And the callers, the listeners, and those in the theater continue to be proud to be part of the discussions that we have. And we, ladies and gentlemen, will be right back after this short break.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Artificial intelligence is the future, not only for Russia, but for all mankind. It comes with colossal opportunities, but also threats that are difficult to predict. Whoever becomes the leader in this sphere will become the ruler of the world. A quote from Vladimir Putin. 46 minutes after the hour, we continue, ladies and gentlemen, with the callers, here with Patrick Wood on what we call Theater of the Mind, the Dr. Sky Experience. Let's welcome on line number 5, Ed in Babylon. Good morning. Thanks for staying up with us. How are you this morning?
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I'd like to thank you for being most eloquent and generous, and your intelligence person representing 77 WIBC, Dr. Sky.
Well, you're very kind. Go ahead, please.
Good at telling the truth. I'd like to regress back to ring cameras. I had a neighbor that was assaulted and was caught on ring camera. One of the neighbors that had it said, well, it expired. Another neighbor didn't want to talk about it. The images from ring cameras kept in a system that are never erased in a memory somewhere, and terabytes within that company that can be accessed legally to help the person.
Wow, Ed, you bring up something interesting. I have no knowledge. Patrick, what say you? Ed brings up something interesting. It's not in the instruction book, I'm sure, but talk about it.
You're right. You're right there. We don't know for sure how long photographs and images or the tape will be maintained on their files. They have, however, they'll tell you perhaps something like 30 days, maybe 45 days, everything's erased at that point. there's no certainty that's happening. However, the near-term aspect is when you have all these cameras maintaining, for instance, 2 weeks or 1 month of data, it sets up a grid that the police can sift through if they're looking for a criminal or looking for some activity in your neighborhood. They have to go through all the data to get whatever they're looking for, and that means your privacy is going to be invaded. And if you, for instance, if you walked in front of on those cameras on the street, your image is in there, your voice might be in there, etc., and you could be tagged with a crime you didn't commit. So this is a violation of privacy on one hand, but the police is saying, well, we need this to solve crime. I say, really? Didn't you solve crime before AI came along in the first place?
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point, Patrick. I mean, law enforcement years ago, when the cop would walk down the street and had that long discipline stick in his hand, the baton, and they would come around, they had more personality. Not knocking police today, but it's not done that way. It's all techno-cop. And God bless them who do those jobs. We're not knocking them. But the reality is, what Ed's bringing up here is something interesting. Let's take the particular case, the mystery and the abduction of Nancy Guthrie. Yes. Right, again, only 90 miles from where I'm sitting right now. And who knows what late-breaking news is coming out as you're hearing and the world is awaiting. But this is interesting. What we find out here is apparently, and I don't know if this is accurate, but I think I read it, but thinking I read it isn't good enough. What did I think I read? That the FBI went back into these cameras, and when it was supposedly not on, it still had some ability to record, and maybe that's how they got the suspects. So in other words, it's what? Always on if the battery's on, or even if it's on when the battery's off. Help us out. What is that?
We don't know for sure, do we?
And I know really it's unfair to really ask you that because it is kind of insane. So in other words, the thing is always broadcasting, and in this particular case, maybe it solves the problem or solves the crime, right?
Well, maybe, when your TV is off in your living room, does it listen to you when it's off?
Well, that's what I mentioned before, Patrick. You go buy a 100-inch television and you have 4 people carry it out and you get it home, or even a smaller one that has what? The back end, I've read, again, I'm not the expert on this, that it has the capability of listening in, just like a lot of these devices. And I better not say it too loud because the one I have, if I say its name, it'll activate and it'll ask me, do I want to do something or have a question answered? So I'm on the air with you and everybody, so I'm not going to activate it. All right, let's continue on here, ladies and gentlemen, because this is fascinating. The lines are lighting up here, as you would expect, Patrick, with such a great topic. Yeah. Let's continue. Let's go to line number 3. Let's welcome John. Good morning, John in New Jersey. How are you? Your concerns about this stuff. Tell us.
Yes, okay. I hope the same for you, Dr. Sky, and your guest. Now, I think it's already happening to all of us. When I turn on sometimes my cell phone, I have just a plain flip phone. I go cheap just to make calls and receive calls.
Right.
I don't do text because I don't like that. I don't even want to bother with it. But sometimes I see a red dot in the corner, and it then on the screen says snapshot. And what I usually do, turn it away from my face. Okay. But I don't know when it's activated or not. And it doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah, what's the ghost in the machine there, John? Sounds like that. Patrick, this is amazing stuff. I mean, more that you don't know about these devices, right?
Yeah, I don't like that for sure. But he's absolutely right. You don't know when your phone is taking a picture of you, and actually this has been leaked from NSA files. They have the ability to turn your phone, the camera on your phone, on or off, even when your phone is off. And they can use this for intelligence purposes. I don't know if they have to get a warrant to do it, but this has been demonstrated even by the Snowden files of years ago. This is very disturbing stuff, really.
Well, here's one. Here's a tip, a free tip that I'm giving out to listeners here. I've done nothing illegal, and you can buy these things, and maybe it's laughable to some people, but I have a Faraday bag in the car. And when you put it in the Faraday bag, and what's a Faraday bag? It has like this metal sheathing. So I tested it out the other day. Not that I'm hiding from anybody, but it's in other words, hey, I just want to see that if I really don't want anybody tracking me for whatever reason, I'm not paranoid. You stick it in the Faraday bag and you take a look at it. And the only thing that lights up, and you look through the Faraday bag, I don't know how you do that, but I did. And it just shows the emergency satellite capability, but it turns it off so that I believe, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that thing can still track you, but if you're really that paranoid, folks, or you want to do justice to what we're talking about, isn't that a cool thing to have? Just if you want to have it for whatever reason you want, and you should not, it's not illegal. Tell us.
Absolutely. I have one myself. My wife has one as well.
I kind of think you would. There you go.
Well, you should do that.
Right.
I mean, if you don't need your cell phone on, maybe you're not expecting a call or something, put it in the bag and go on your business. And
absolutely, because in other words, look, I worked for a couple of companies in my life. They were good. They were whatever, and they gave us these cell phones. And a couple of guys in the room said, "Hey, you get a Faraday bag, they can't track you." Well, I didn't do that when I was working for the company, but the point is, you can hide. Remember the old days when you could only use a payphone? You had to put quarters and dimes in. This is going way back in time. The only way people could find you is if you called in, and if you were on the road, nobody could reach you. Maybe sometimes that's a good thing, but not in emergencies. Right. Let's move on here. Line number 2. Let's see how many callers we can get to the top of the hour. Tom, you've been patient in Boston. Good morning. What say you? How you doing?
Hi, Dr. Sky. I believe that the only benefit of this new technology will be a demonic party, and that is the Democratic Party. I believe the Democratic Party has become a demonic party.
Okay. Powerful stuff from Tom in Boston. And, this is an interesting conversation here, but the whole iteration of AI as it continues to move on, right, our special guest, Patrick Wood, it doesn't have a political side at this point, right?
It does not.
I don't know.
It does not have a political side, even though they're identified currently with the Republican Party, the Conservative Party, the MAGA movement, if you will. They flip-flopped over the years. They don't really care who's in power. They'll march on with their technology to get their way. At this point, it looks like it may be close to game over for us. I hope that's not the case, but unless somehow we can stop this progress from killing us all or taking away all the jobs in this country, there's going to be trouble ahead. And,
we want to give positivity too, Patrick. And you're not,
Yes.
you're not giving us a whole, horrible horror story here. You're just giving us the research that you do. And his website, ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Wood, technocracy.news. And I can assure you, because I'm a big fan of Patrick, and I know you are, ladies and gentlemen, the reason we have him back as much as we do, at least once a month, his website, you could go on for days and read these different stories that he's bringing to the attention of people. And here's one positivity before we go out to the top of the hour. I want to mention something, Patrick. You and I both know this. In Arizona, there was a large campaign by the citizenry to come in and go to these city council meetings, without naming the town here, to fight the development of an AI data center. And much to the surprise of many people who said, well, you'll never stop that thing. No way, you'll never stop that. They obviously did, and they decided not to build that data center there. So in other words, there is hope, right, Patrick, for people to organize together if they believe strongly in something. But they have to read behind the lines and see what's going on, right?
You're absolutely right. And the city that you talk about, I won't mention the name, but happens to be a very liberal city.
Right.
And the liberal city council voted unanimously to reject the data center. Imagine that.
Well, that's interesting. So it's about common sense here, because no matter what party you are, you can't say that, well, all the Republicans are always going to want to have data centers, or all the Democrats are going to say yes or no. I mean, obviously, it came as a surprise to many, thinking that the Democrats would go ahead with this for whatever reason I read. And that's, again, kind of a nebulous story, too. But they won. The citizens won. And that's what's important. And ladies and gentlemen, We still know you're out there. Susan in Corning, New York, Alexi in Queens. If you'd like to, please, we would certainly consider you to be on as soon as we return in hour number 2. If you so desire to stay on the line, and we do appreciate everyone. Patrick, this is a fascinating story, but when we come back, I'd like to dig deeper, with your okay, into this particular story of what Matt Schumer is talking about. Let's dissect it a little. I have it in front of me. Who's he? The co-founder and CEO of Otherside AI. The headline of his particular story, which is very lengthy, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. He's been on many of the news shows around the nation and around the world, entitled "Something Big is Happening in AI, and Most People Will Be Blindsided." That's an interesting story. And also, ladies and gentlemen, your questions and comments as we continue to hour number 2. Yes, the Theater of the Mind continues here on this radio station. Proudly, Talk Radio 77 WABC, the powerhouse of radio stations, the blowtorch as we like to call it. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, broadcasting where? From the center of the universe, New York City, to the world, and to all of our friends out there. We say it often. This particular powerhouse heard in 173 countries, all 50 states, and I'm even sure way out to the cosmos. We'll be right back with hour number 2, and you and I and Patrick Wood talking more about technocracy and, of course, transhumanism.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of the Dr. Sky Experience. We call it proudly Theater of the Mind, and you can step up to the microphone in the theater and ask your questions. We love dialogue and critical thinking, and thanks to our helmsmen that are handling all the numbers of callers that are coming in here, jam-packing these particular phone lines for good reason. Our special guest, Patrick Wood, he, of course, his website, technocracy.news. In his words, let me say it loudly and proudly. Welcome to the technocracy. You wanted convenience. Instead, you got replaced. 1-800-848-9222 as our Theater of the Mind continues. Patrick, the callers are coming in left and right here, like airplanes coming into the big airports. So let's go to line number 3 and welcome Susan in Corning, New York. Thank you, Susan, for joining us. How are you this morning?
Oh, well, listen, you started the show, and hi, Patrick, hi, Dr. Sky, and I wasn't completely set, but you were talking about Doge, Patrick, and how that whole effort, did that steal our data, or what were you saying? And also, Elon Musk was saying, like, how we won't work, people won't work because they'll, with AI, everything is going to be so efficient that, so much more efficient than us, lowly humans. But it's in our DNA to work. It's in our, the hunters and gatherers. Working gives us purpose. It gives us accomplishment. And so isn't that also part of what you're saying about the transhumanism?
Patrick, this is interesting. She's calling us, and that is Susan in Corning, New York. What say you? She's brought up a couple of interesting topics here that I think need a response.
Well, you're absolutely right. What happened in Washington, D.C. when Doge came in was totally misinterpreted by the press and even analysts. They said, well, it was all about being efficient and, cutting down the size of government, stuff like that. And what happened was actually quite opposite of that. Now the damage has been done, and all the data in our government has been lifted away from the silos that were in the first place. And imagine, and this was intentional. For instance, all of your tax data, it's in a silo. That's the term used. It was isolated. Nobody other than the tax people should be looking into your tax data. That was off limits for anybody in government. It's always been this way until Doge came in. The same thing with your health data. That was all siloed intentionally. But this whole thing changed just overnight. when Doge came in, they said, "Oh, we need to release all this data into the cloud and have a beat on it to have somebody like Palantir come in and organize all this data for us in order to control society." Really?
Susan, thank you for your call, and a happy Valentine's Day, with great love to all of our listeners out there. A day of love, but should be a day every day, right, Patrick? Not just a day on the calendar, because those roses don't last forever unless you, I don't know, they have a new one out that lasts a year. But simply, happy Valentine's Day to all of the people out there that are listening around the nation and around the world. Maybe we can all love something and leave and learn a lesson and how to continue it. Let's go to line number 1. He's been patient. He's a regular caller. Alexi in Queens. Good morning. You're on with Patrick Wood. How you doing this morning?
Good evening, gentlemen. And I hate to say this, but we are heading towards an absolute nightmare, which is unavoidable. There is nothing we can do about it. The problem is not this AI. The problem is not with these various connections with AI. The problem is that the people of the United States have basically surrendered their right to privacy and other rights to not only the government, but they've surrendered it to major corporations. They have allowed this to progress for the last 40, 50 years, and now it is going to culminate in this AI disaster. But the AI is not evil. It is what is going to be done with it. Already, you have children who have AI toys, and they are talking back and forth with this computer about terrible things many times. You have Alisa, the thing product made by Amazon. It sits in your home, this black lump of plastic, and it listens to everything you say. And you have Samsung televisions, which not only you watch, but they watch you. It is over with. It is done. No one even is willing to raise a thumb or a finger.
Alexi, I hate to cut you short, but Patrick, your response is much needed here. Alexi brings up some good points, and we're certainly not trying, at least I know you are, and I'm not trying to demonize every single thing. There are some benefits here, but the balance is something I wonder about. How would you respond to Alexi? Go ahead.
Well, I like what he said, and I have to stress, your home traditionally in America has been your spot for sanctity. In other words, that's where you do your private stuff. You don't want anybody to see what goes on in your home. That's called sanctity.
Absolutely.
And this has been invaded with all these devices now, not only smartphones, but smart TVs, things like Alexa, Siri, etc. All of these smart devices are invading your sanctity at home, where all of your innermost thoughts are being expressed to an AI program.
Right. So do the benefits outweigh the problems, or the opposite way to say it? Appreciate, Alexi, your concerns here. Full border callers here. Let's move on to line number 2. They've been patient. Richie in Long Island, thanks for your patience. You're on with Patrick Wood.
Okay. Hi, gentlemen. And this show is great. But the thing is, you're worried about what the technology could do as invading our privacy and who has their hands on this. But guys don't seem to be worried that like an Omar and a Cortez and a Jeffries are going to be leading this country, and the most biggest and powerful atomic arsenal will be in their control, along with all the computer systems. That doesn't seem to frighten you. So I'm really a little skeptical about you guys really being worried about artificial intelligence and anything else that comes down the pike. When we're turning over our nuclear arsenal to the third world that's inside America, America's been invaded. Every enemy of America has their people in here. I would be worried about people working on artificial intelligence who are spies for Russia and China. And you
Richie,
guys
I
are
couldn't
worried
agree
about
with you more. Before Patrick responds, let me say something. Look, I'm a veteran. There's a lot of veterans out there. If you're not a veteran, the same point is just equally impressive. I try to do a show here that's basically in the science realm of mysteries. But for years, I did a show called A Call to Rights, which is about our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, our gun rights. That's a little different than what we normally talk about. Don't think, my friend, that I'm not powerful in those statements. You better believe it. I agree with you 1,000,000% if we get into that personal discussion. You better believe it. If people who are not going to control and keep America the number one country in the world here, American exceptionalism, I'm worried about that too. But that's another subject for another time. But go ahead, Patrick. He brings up some interesting points.
I agree completely. My demeanor is not given over to be an alarmist, if you will. I have alarm. I don't want to frighten people, on the other hand, to take a wrong view of what I say. But we're just laying out the facts at this point. We're telling you what's going on with AI, with technocracy in general. And there's so many other things that we can look at beyond just the AI itself, like who's going to be in charge of the nuclear stockpile if these technocrat oligarchs take over our country. There's only basically like 6 people in that class of oligarchs that's controlling everything we're talking about today. Do we want 6 people in charge of our country in that way? No, we don't. Or any other country for that matter.
Richie, I salute you. Let me say this again. I don't normally get into a political discussion here. I'm obviously more conservative in my whole thing. I supported Donald Trump, and I will continue to support the President of the United States. Obviously, nobody's perfect, but when it comes to the nuclear question, you're absolutely right. All it takes is that nuclear clock by the atomic scientists went from minutes now down to 85 seconds or less. Wow. Not just around here in the United States. But what about somebody else that gets one of these and wants to chuck it or lob it at somebody? Hopefully, the cascading thing won't be the Dr. Strangelove phenomenon. Story for another topic. Let's go to line number 4. Let's welcome Robert in North Carolina. Robert, thank you for your patience, and thank you for being with us. How are you doing?
Hi. Good morning. Okay, I can disable surveillance tech.
How?
It's not that hard, actually. If you have
you smash it with a hammer, what do you do?
With
you shoot it with a rifle or a pistol? What do you do?
I'm an electronic tech and computer geek.
Okay, I'm being serious. No, go ahead. I want to hear this.
With the schematics and parts data, I can target whatever you want to maintain your privacy. For example, disabling microphones, cameras, and GPS chips that are in devices.
Okay.
So that video, audio, and the GPS location, geo data will not be transmitted outside.
Robert, I'm not trying to be funny, but you could conduct these classes and have lots of people, I'm sure, in the room. You could tell them, bring your own tools and bring your own items, because maybe we need more about this. If we were being surveilled and it's, quote, illegal, or it's against our will, we don't want to destroy other people's property. But if you want to disable your own, right, Patrick, you've got the freedom to do it. But why buy it if you want to destroy something you paid so much for? You can't return it to the store.
I would like to see this. I would like to see this kind of a class immediately for people.
No, Robert, continue on that theme. I mean, that's interesting. So can you give us any tips here? I mean, do you know that the televisions that we have, these very big, giant, monstrous LCDs or whatever they are, the new technology, can you disable or even identify that they're spying on us? Do you know that? And how do you take that off? How do you do it?
It's possible.
Okay.
It can be detected using standard instruments like voltmeters, oscilloscopes, and other things.
Mm-hmm. Well, the average person, I think, not to disagree with you, Robert, you bring up some good points. The average person doesn't really understand the dynamics of what's inside their phone. And how many of these phones today can you even take the battery out? If I'm looking at my iPhone, it's pretty much a contiguous thing that you can't touch it. So I don't know. I don't want to destroy my $1,500 iPhone. And at least I paid for mine. I don't have to worry about that. Any closing comment, Robert? You got the floor. We'll continue on. I guess Robert's gone. Let's go to line number 1. Let's welcome Marie in Putnam County. You've been patient, and good morning to you, and happy Valentine's Day. That's what I want to say.
Happy Valentine's Day to you. You mentioned the Faraday bag. Can you tell us where you purchased that?
I forget because I've had it for 10 years, and I can tell you this much. Patrick, maybe you can be more of help. I mean, they're probably available on Amazon, and other places that products are sold, right?
Absolutely. You'll find them all over the place, but that's a good place to research the bag that you want to buy. And
no, but
just
I
go
don't
to Amazon
go on.
and type in.
Go ahead, Marie. Sorry.
No, see, you're talking to somebody who's not high tech. So I'm just asking a store where I can go, a brick and mortar store where I can go. Do you know for sure of a brick and mortar store where I can just walk in and buy it right away without going through any computer?
Good question, Marie. I don't know personally. Patrick, what say you?
My guess is you could probably go like to a Best Buy store and at least get advice if they don't have something in the store. I think you'll find something on the website. But that's a good place to start. Maybe to an Apple store. If you have an iPhone, ask them if they have any type of a device like that. They should be able to point you in the right direction.
That's interesting. And Marie, you don't use email, if I may ask personally, because maybe the two of you could communicate later and you could help her. But I don't know how deep are you in. Are you into email, ma'am? Or may I ask, Marie? Do you do that?
Also, what does it look like? What does the Faraday bag look like?
Okay, I'll take that one, Patrick. It looks like a little slip cover that you would put something in, like a pillowcase, but it's made out of like metal fiber, and you slide it in there. I have a couple of them. You could put your iPad or your tablet, which you use Android or iPad, whatever, an Apple one, or anybody else's. You slide it in there, so you just turn it over, and it's got some adhesive, like Velcro, and it takes probably what, Patrick? Not even a minute or two. And the thing is not communicating. But let me be very careful in what I'm saying here. I don't know, Patrick, if 5G has a penetration wall or these other technologies. I know my phone, I think it's 5G, I presume it is. It goes offline in a matter of just minutes, Marie. So it looks like a slip cover, but a small little thing that has Velcro on it for the size. They make them in the size of like your phone or a tablet. That's what they do. Patrick, any closing comment from Marie on to help her?
5G will not penetrate a Faraday bag at this point.
Okay.
I can't vouch for 6G, but I think it would do that as well. And it's a very easy thing to, if anybody has like a radiation meter. I actually have one. I paid $300 for it, but you can tell immediately once your phone is in there if any radiation is being emitted from the bag. I've tested mine, and it's completely silent when it gets in that bag.
See, we try to give you the answers, and again, we're doing our very best here, and I hope that's at least satisfactory. We don't know the stores, but you can check that out, as Patrick was saying, and if you want to use one, it'll just take off that phone or whatever offline. And for whatever reason you have, that's your business. But thank you, Marie in Putnam County. We appreciate you. Let's go to line number 2. He's been patient. Sam in the Bronx. You're on with Patrick Wood. Good morning.
Sky and Patrick. I think AI is going to be great for in the future for local hospitals and doctors. They can communicate around the world and with special surgeries because, there's a lot of doctors that travel. Now it's just that in the future, I think they're going to they already have it now. It depends where, but it'll be interesting that if a patient needed a special surgery, that doctor can call up somewhere in the United States or overseas and say, hey, listen, let's get online through AI, or we can do robotic surgery, but it will be 10 times much better, communication wise.
Yeah, you bring up some good points. I mean, it's all not darkness. I mean, I did, I'm sharing my personal story here across the airwaves. A few years ago, I had a knee replacement, right knee. I was an athlete, and over the years, I guess it required it. It was too painful. It was done by, I think, something that I don't know, Sam, for sure. It was called a Da Vinci machine. And my doctor, he was smiling, from one side of his mouth to the other. And he says, I assisted the Da Vinci, and I didn't know what he was talking about. But apparently, it did the precision that he even said would be a little more difficult. Not that he's a bad surgeon, but apparently some of the benefits that you're talking about, Sam, it's also very valid. Patrick, add on to that because, it's not all darkness. It's not all bad news. But what would you say?
You're exactly right. And of course, there's many medical procedures that can benefit today with AI. There's no question that it can help some people. But you want to make sure that it's not at the expense of all people. Limit the good uses of AI, but shun the bad uses of AI in medicine. And, you still want the human in the loop no matter what. Your doctor should be the last person who has a say on your treatment and the test you get. And if AI is going to operate on you, it should be with your doctor's permission and consent, if you will, your consent as well. Yeah. This is common sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, Sam, thanks for giving us the other side of the equation, because you're absolutely right. I mean, in the technology, if we go in and we extrapolated before some of the things that Elon Musk is doing with Neuralink, what a powerful statement that is for people who are paralyzed or blind. Wouldn't it be amazing, ladies and gentlemen, if for those that cannot see had the ability to regain sight through technology like that? So there are positives to that, and I appreciate you, Sam, in the Bronx, for bringing up those particular revelations. Almost at the bottom of the hour, ladies and gentlemen. How time flies as we continue to talk with our special guest, Patrick Wood. So much to talk about, and I keep pushing this off, but I'd like to, when we come back from the break, let's talk about what Matt Schumer has been talking about this article. Something big is happening in AI, and most people will be blindsided. He has a retraction, so if you also watch on the YouTube or the other mainstream media outlets, the videos, he's saying he didn't want to be alarmist. He was just trying to bring people's attention to something because he knows so much about this, Patrick. And I find it fascinating because when you get a guy at that high level who's in the development of this, the basic synthesis, we'll tease it right now again, is that what he's saying is, as a coder, he obviously codes, let's say you're developing an app, and he's talking about developing an app with code. He says he makes mistakes. So he goes back and takes the time to correct what he's done wrong. And then obviously in this new iteration of some of these, things that are happening with AI, it can not only make that more perfect, if you want to call it perfect, but then it replicates itself to make it even better than it was, which sounds totally ridiculous. But it's true, right, Patrick? It's in other words, it has the ability to change its mind through thinking. And that's the thing that's pretty bizarre. What say you? That's incredible. And that's only the beginning of what he's talking about.
Definitely a new development in AI theory and practice. What it's doing today isn't what it did even 3 months ago. But today, all of a sudden, it's matured to the point where some programs and certain applications can be coded without human intervention at all.
Folks, Patrick, we always say you do a wonderful job. That's because the listeners, and again, emails we get at drsky@wabcradio.com. That's why, I would have you back, but the audience, obviously, by the number of calls we're getting. Stay tuned tomorrow night for the Dr. Sky Experience as we move into Saturday, into Sunday morning. And here's what I have on tap here. We're going to be talking with a gentleman about what's happening with photo tickets. Now, you may go, what the heck are we talking about? I thought he's going to talk about space. The problematic thing with these photo tickets that are coming all over again, deep surveillance. This weekend, we're talking about subjects that are very important. American exceptionalism, how, of course, we stay on measure. We'll have a gentleman who's going to talk about this. He's the head of the American Motorist Association. And then also in hour number 2, a good friend of ours, Drew Allen, who's going to be talking about a book deeply into the story of American exceptionalism, America's Last Stand. Is it too late? As we continue, ladies and gentlemen, with your questions and comments at 1-800-848-9222. And if you're looking for what's in the heavens, we give you a quick report. The moon, of course, is continuing to thin out in the sky. It moved on to its particularly new phase. It will, I should say, on the 17th. The darkness of the night sky continues. Jupiter, the dominant planet, once again, high into the east as you look up at night. For many of you, by the time you hear this show, it's nearly overhead, 400 million miles away. And the planet Saturn, if you have a small telescope, you'll get to see this ring system on edge and so many more wonders of the universe. Check out heavensabove.com for satellite observations. Plug your city in. And spaceweather.com for the latest on the solar flares. We'll be right back here on the Dr. Sky Experience.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Learn about quantum computing, superintelligence, and singularity. The inevitable is coming. Technology guru, that quote from Dave Waters. As we continue, ladies and gentlemen, moving into deeper parts of hour number 2, 32 minutes after the hour, we continue, if you're just joining us, with our good friend Patrick Wood, technocracy.news, if you'd like to check out his website, and we do appreciate you. Let's continue with the callers, a powerful number of callers calling. Let's go to line number 1 and welcome Eduardo in Tampa. Good morning. How are you down there in Tampa?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sky. I used to live in Chicago, and I was watching the news from my former home city, and they were talking about rural Illinois, where they have 4 data centers, and they're trying to, calm things down over there because they complain about high electricity bills and vibrations. And there's a legislation to kind of like curb that and kind of get like water permits, and that 80% of it goes to clean water. So,
powerful stuff. Powerful, Eduardo, because like we said before, here in Arizona, a group of people, citizens, got together, and the city council, they found out that the city council they rejected the entire thing. So there's not going to be a data center.
I heard about that, and I visited that place when I went to Phoenix for the travel show. I believe the city starts with a C. I don't want to say the name of the city, but I know which one you're talking about.
You better believe it. Not that I'm afraid to mention it. It's just that, in all due respect to the city council there, we just don't want to start a whole world war over that because it was citizens that did it, right, Eduardo? That's interesting. Patrick.
Oh, yeah.
This is powerful.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they did in the rural Illinois. Yeah, it's the same thing like over there.
You got it.
Yeah, sure.
The power of the people.
Absolutely. I saw a video of the packed room when the city council made that decision. It was packed to the rafters, literally. The people cheered when they brought the vote down to the people. People were so elated, and I'm talking. This was a big room. It was packed out, standing room only. It's amazing.
Electric rates are a big issue, right, Patrick? We talked about this during the last gubernatorial campaign in New Jersey. That surfaced as a major issue for people with their, outrageous electric bills. And not only there, but other places around the country, even here in Arizona. You have the Corporation Commission here in Arizona, and they, of course, jump in on this. And I don't know. It keeps going up and up and up. But Patrick, tell us, though, because Eduardo brings up some good points. And we're talking about citizens being able to fight something. And there still is power in numbers here. And what I'm trying to find out is, that's an interesting thing. I mean, talk a little bit more about this whole relationship between data centers and rates of electricity. Is it true that that's the culprit? I mean, really, truly, I don't want to sound stupid here. Is that the main culprit that you see across the nation for the rates increase in electric?
Absolutely it is, and it's egregious for sure. But and it's been different for different localities around the country. We probably are going to be facing more severe cost increases in the next year. Other people have already experienced it, like in New Jersey and Delaware. There's lots of data centers in Washington and around the surrounds around Washington, D.C. It's hitting our grid, our normal the normal power grid. And there was no checks or balances to thwart those changes in the first place when they saw the data centers coming. They didn't count the cost on what the public will have to pay. And why should the public pay for these data centers anyway? It makes no sense to me. If they want to have their own facilities, fine. Pay for them. You got all the money in the world. You pay for it. Get your own energy. Get your own water, whatever. But as this caller just said, there's other issues besides power. Water is a big thing at this point. People around data centers are talking about their water supply has been shut off of the wells and stuff. They
That's
talk
amazing,
about
right?
The vibration stuff driving people crazy. This is another aspect. of these data
Well, that's
centers.
why, Patrick, let me say this, not to be on a soapbox here and praising your laurels here. This is interesting that by the number of people that are calling about stuff like this, like Eduardo in Tampa, very interesting commentary, because it's never too late, ladies and gentlemen, for the citizens to act here, but you got to pay attention to you got to read more about these things. You have to, if you're not an attorney, you have to find someone that can read these bills. And I'm sure you're a guy that reads them hook, line, and sinker with a yellow highlighter to find out what's the loopholes that some of these things get passed by. But let's move on. We have so many callers and limited time. Line number 2, he's been patient. Pete in Staten Island, you're on with Patrick Wood. How you doing?
Hi, Dr. Sky and Mr. Woods. I have to ask about this thing with Nancy, that reporter's mother. Now, yes. I'm left-handed, and I had to learn how to do everything right as a stage and righty, because when I did anything lefty, it looked unorthodox, and they would complain. Now, I noticed on that camera, on that view camera, that guy at the door had the gun, and the handle was facing towards his left hand, and he also had his hand by his belt. I would never put my gun in the front of my belt pocket.
Well, Pete, you're absolutely right. Look, I teach firearm training. This is way off subject, but you're absolutely right. Only a fool would put a gun like that in their waistband without a secure holster of any type. And again, we don't know. A gun is a firearm's a deadly weapon. You could pull the thing out and you could still shoot. But the problem is it looks like an amateur, a really serious amateur, that's putting that in that position right there. And why would you even want to identify that you have a firearm? If you're going to go and do these nasty things, you have this out in a very unsecured type of holster. Believe me, I could go on, but Pete in Staten Island, continue, because I want Patrick to respond to all this stuff here.
Okay. Well,
he's
that's
absolutely right.
I feel that. I had he fumbled. He should have tape or something, or with a hammer, knock the doorbell off. It was just completely stupid. But this guy is out there roaming around, and I hope they get him, because this is very sick. This is. I'm a little upset with that they leave this woman with cameras and not nurses and people to take care of her.
You're right.
In the desert, alone in the house. That's an elder abuse. I'm sorry.
Well, Pete, I didn't want to go into the details of that particular case. I mean, that's not my privilege here to talk about that in detail. I don't know a lot about it, but from what we read and what we see. But I do know one thing. The Catalina foothills, I'm very familiar with it. If people were to visit there, it's a beautiful time in Arizona to be out there and there. But what about it? It's very, very isolated. So a lot of those homes, they don't have big security gates on the front. It's more desert landscaping, so you could just basically walk in off the street and walk right up, right, Patrick? Right to the houses we see. But it's usually a very dark area. And talking about the astronomy side here, I think, Pete, you'd appreciate this, and the listeners. Tucson is one of the cities that also talks about the dark sky environment, because a lot of the tourism comes in there, wants to see the night sky. So there's not a lot of lights, particularly in that location. So, we pray for the best for this particular individual. But Patrick, it's just so sad to talk about it. I don't know enough about it. I'll be honest with the audience.
Steve, I just heard this evening that a home near the house where she was living has been raided by a SWAT team.
Right. That was news here on WABC, right.
Exactly. So they've emptied the house. This might be where the perpetrator has holed up, if you will. But the fact that this caller talks about the placement of the gun in the first place, that tells me these were total amateurs. Whoever did this was just off the rocker, thinking that they're going to be a professional hit job, if you will, to pull this off. And if they discovered that the house was nearby, that would fit the mold at this point perfectly.
Absolutely.
Total amateur job.
Look, I said it before. I'll say it again. It's not the main focus of the program. I teach this stuff all the time from a LE background, law enforcement background. And let me say this. For another time, for another show, and who knows what happens in the future. We just pray for the safe return of this individual, and that's all that matters here. But hopefully they get the perpetrator. And it looks like somehow news will be coming out shortly, I gather, from what we've heard from our WABC newsroom here. So people will stay tuned, of course, to hear the latest on the Nancy Guthrie abduction mystery. Thank you, Pete in Staten Island. I appreciate your call. You know, Patrick, we never really got into the meat. We haven't even touched your subjects that you sent me, which is all on technocracy.news. So much more. And a big plug for something. I want to do this before the break, and I'm very proud to say this. I read this book, and a lot of times people will send me a book, and I would say to the different authors, they say, oh, we'd love to come on your show and talk about these things if they're pertinent to the subject. We can't get everybody. And your help, ladies and gentlemen, if you have some guests that you think would be worthy of coming on to expand our minds about the mysteries, DRSKY, Dr. Sky at WABCRadio.com. But your book, The Final Betrayal, I found it interesting. So what I'm saying is to the audience, I read these books, not just skim them and say, oh, wow, you know, what's in chapter 200? You know, I do the best I can. Why? Because I think if you're listening to someone like myself, I should be prepared as best as possible and not just, you know, play it by ear and see how it goes. So your book, I think, seriously, is something that people should look at if they're concerned about the concerns that we're talking about in technocracy and, of course, in the subject of transhumanism. And how can they get the book, The Final Betrayal, A Cautionary Tale? How do they get it?
Well, the best place you can get it at our website, technocracy.news. However, in Amazon.com, I have the audiobook there, the Kindle version, as well as the book itself, the paperback book. And so you can go to Amazon. If you don't like to buy a book, that's fine. Get the audiobook. You can listen to it in 3.5 hours. You'll get all the content, and God bless you. The problem with audio content, of course, is it could change. Probably somebody could edit sometime and make a mockery of it. But until then,
I hear you
have Until then, you have the print book in your possession that can't be censored.
And I don't do this often, Patrick. We're almost up at the break here. But is there a way I can kindly ask you to do some homework for the listeners, maybe up on technocracy.news? Maybe you can source out or just give a definition of how people can get a Faraday bag if they choose to, because that would all be available at Technocracy News, if you'd be so kind to lead us down the path of
that would be wonderful.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I like that idea. I'll see what I can do if I put something on the homepage, but you can click on it and get a bag for yourself.
The Dr. Sky Experience continues, ladies and gentlemen. If you're Robert in Florida and anybody else that wants to try to get in, and we, of course, respect you, the callers rule, 1-800-848-9222. It's now time to take an intermission at the Dr. Sky Experience in what we call Theater of the Mind. As many of you might head to the snack bar or whatever, we will be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Master AI before it masters you. Another quote from technologist Dave Waters as we talk about this with Patrick Wood as we wrap up hour number 2. We continue, Patrick, with the callers. Let's say good morning to David in Staten Island. You've been patient, and we appreciate you. How are you doing?
Thank you, Dr. Sky. The interesting fact is that AI could be a lot bigger than people know. In the Middle East, I'm not relating technicals because I don't want anybody else to cause any problems.
Okay.
Cell phones were all exploded in the Middle East, all at the same time. That's a sample. The second thing is AI would fit well with a movie called The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Oh, one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful movie. Absolutely. It talked about, a little off subject, but it talks about when many people in the 50s and the early 60s always thought that the alien invasion were these horrible monsters. It gave us hope that maybe we should learn from these visitors that they didn't come to hurt us. They came in peace. Patrick, he brings up some good points. David in Staten Island, thank you.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, these are interesting comments for sure. I agree.
No, it's amazing what goes on. You know, we love the callers out here, and a happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there. Isn't it ironic? We never seem to learn from the historical things. You know, war. When does it change? Is the human DNA warped? And who knows? Maybe somehow, let's be positive too. Maybe AI can maybe give us some answers that are positive. But then again, I might be asking for too much. We never got to all your topics, Patrick, and I just want to give the audience a little bit of a smattering of some of these. They can read, and of course you can comment before the top of the hour. To serve man, the rapid rise of AI, compute and AI data centers. I think we covered some of that. Anything there that you want people to know about?
Well, we just
for
talked
another
about
14
aliens.
hours, right?
I know we talked about aliens. There was an episode of what was it? Twilight Zone, 1962, I think it was. The episode was called "To Serve Man."
The Kahnemans.
And the aliens came down to help man, and they're going to give free energy and some, promises, whatever. And they discover at the end of the episode that what they were there for was to deliver humans to their own planet to serve them as food.
It's amazing because
man.
I'm a big collector of these sci-fi dolls. I mean, don't laugh, people. All the different Star Trek ones. I love it, but I had this one from the Twilight Zone, the big Kahneman, that's about 8 foot tall. The actor, just in case people are curious, is actually the Jaws guy, Richard Keel. And that was one of his early iterations in television. But Rod Serling had it so well, didn't he, with all these different episodes, way before his time, or way ahead of his time, I should say.
Absolutely, absolutely.
How about this one? Take this one on. I know these are going to be short answers. The Epstein effect. Say goodbye to globalization. Hello to technocracy. Translate that in English. What does that mean?
Well, I question a little bit why the Epstein files were released when they did. Because what the effect has been, forget the particulars, but the effect has been to discredit government, especially in our country, where people are just throwing up their hands and saying, to heck with it all, I'm not going to vote anymore, I'm sick with the corruption, all the pedophilia, and all the nonsense going on in Washington, D.C. The effect is it's going to drive people into technocracy. A lot of people are saying now, well, the only way to save us from this whole mess is to put AI in place and make AI the arbiter of all the decisions going forward. This would be a dangerous thing, but nevertheless, this is where it is.
Wow, if you're a member of the John Birch Society, and I'm not kidding here, ladies and gentlemen, you'll love this next headline that Patrick will narrate as we go to the top of the hour. Here's the headline. United Nations warns it's going broke without U.S. financial support. Wow. That's real?
Doesn't just break your heart?
Well, I was saying the John Birch Society, I have many friends that have joined that, and again, wonderful group, but the truth is one of their main mantras, what? Get the U.S. out of the United Nations. But continue on this. I mean, how's this happening in real time? Talk about it.
Well, because President Trump has axed the budget to many agencies associated with the UN and NGOs as well. And so they're complaining at this point, well, they're running out of money, and they might be out of cash by the middle of summer. That means also that other countries are not paying their fair share. They should have all along. They just ignore it. So they let us pay all the bills. Well, that's over at this point. Yeah. How they're going to survive, who knows?
And as the president also said, Patrick, that in their story of NATO, he wants to see them cough up the money for their fair share for the protection that they were, depending on America for. We were footing the whole bill. They should come up, in his opinion, the president, to be a partial, sponsor or pay more if you want that protection. Makes sense.
You can't argue with that logic.
Absolutely. Very interesting. Any other thing that you want to bring to this audience that I haven't even talked about, or we obviously ran out of time to discuss?
Well, I think so. We didn't get to talk about the article that we started to talk about Matt Schumer.
Sure.
But nevertheless, this is an important article. I encourage people to go and find this article and read it. And basically, he's just telling us how he experienced AI taking over his job. He's a leader of the company. He says, I'm no longer needed for the actual technical work of my job.
Yes. He goes into such detail. I mean, it's a very lengthy article, and I apologize to the audience. We haven't had a chance to really dig into it. But is that something that you'll be posting on technocracy.news in great detail and analysis?
Indeed. I'm going to post the article probably tomorrow before Monday.
Okay, that sounds interesting because, again, what I got out of it, and there's so many parts to this, just a subset of what we're talking about, is that he is a coder, not to be overly repetitive. He obviously has been made many mistakes, like anybody. We're human. And he goes back to correct them. It takes a lot of time. So he's saying these new iterations of AI and these different engines and updates. But he's also saying this, folks. This is interesting. He's not asking for your money. He's saying that if you have the free service of, let's say, ChatGPT, you're really not getting the experience of what AI can do. Now, he's the person who knows about this, and he doesn't have a little box where you can pay. You know, he's not trying to do that. He's saying this, that if you pay the $20 to some of these engines, you can get some really deep analysis. It's amazing. I mean, let's say this, people that are lonely and have nobody to talk to, well, I don't know. That's another option that you can do, but it's also good to help in businesses. It can go through what? They're talking about law firms, right? Where obviously they can do so much in the real world and think out of the box here by different legal cases. And it's amazing because even the staff and the clerks that they have, sad to say, they might have to be replaced someday because AI can do it faster, cheaper. What business would argue with that? But we're on the side of trying to keep people employed too, right, Patrick?
Exactly so. Yeah, people need work. We're made to work, and we find meaning in our work. And how many people have you met in the last 20 years? The first thing you say when you meet them for the first time, "What do you do?" Yeah. Right? That's the first question that you ask somebody. What do you do? And you want to find out, of course. You want to, that tells you about the person. Well,
here's something I started off saying, Patrick, not to cut you short. On February 5th, and I'm reading this, OpenAI released GPT 5.3 codec. In the technical documentation, they included this, and I'm quoting it. GPT 5.3 codec is our first model that was instrumental in creating itself. The codec team used early versions to debug its own training, manage its own development, and diagnose test results and evaluations. His words, read that again. AI helped build itself. That's amazing. In other words, you could leave the room and it would do everything without your help. It did it better than you could ever do. And there lies the big question. Is it out of control? How do we control it? And folks, if you enjoyed this program, tomorrow night, as we move through time and space, if you're tired of surveillance and the cameras, let's talk about this one. No matter where you live across the United States and many parts of the world, the whole photo radar ticket thing is a great subject. And if you're tired of hearing about that, I'm sure you'll be interested to hear what our guests have to say as we talk more about the subject of American exceptionalism, surveillance, and what have you, is what's really going on. Interesting. Many, many cameras, sometimes good, sometimes not. The surveillance state. You say it best. It's at an all-time high. Welcome to the technocracy. You wanted convenience. Instead, you got replaced. Your words on your brochure, right, Patrick Wood?
That's right. That's exactly right.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you. It's amazing to go down this. Look at the number of callers we get, and we're appreciative of our helmsman handling all that, Tony and Bill, navigating this powerhouse radio station. Incredible. What an honor to be sitting behind this microphone. And again, a sincere thank you to owner and operator John Katzimatidis and from the executive staff, Chad Lopez, for permitting me to do this. I love it, and I hope the audience appreciates it just the same. We may not always agree, ladies and gentlemen, but again, this radio show, talking about the great mysteries, not only from space, astronomy, space, aviation, weather. You hear celebrity guests here like the great Ruta Lee, one of the actresses that I've come to know. She's in her 90s. If you haven't seen the movie, a black and white, witness for the prosecution, when you see Marlene Dietrich and Ruta Lee and so many others, and stories of American exceptionalism. Thank you, Patrick Wood. Again, the website, so people can go there. Tell us again.
Technocracy.news.
Until we do it again, we wish each and every one, right, Patrick? A happy Valentine's Day. Love should be the answer, and love should be the thing. And I know that sounds a little corny to some people, but we believe it. And we wish you, ladies and gentlemen, the health and happiness that each and one of you deserve in these times that maybe many people give up and say, no, there's nothing we can do. We tend to think differently. Until next time, thank you, Patrick Wood, and all of you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to the Dr. Sky Experience. Email me if you have questions or concerns, drsky@wabcradio.com. We'll see you in less than 24 hours. Clear skies, health and happiness, and happy Valentine's.
Thanks for listening to the Dr. Sky Experience. You can hear the Dr. Sky Experience Saturday mornings, midnight to 2 a.m. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at wabcradio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our country has to offer, especially health care. Across every state, every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.